people resist pressure, not change, in itself is not what people fear. If that were true, no one would ever start a new job, move to a new city, or try a different way of doing things. What people resist is not change. It's the pressure that often comes with it. When someone feels forced into change, their natural instinct is to defend what they know. It's not because they don't see the benefits of something new, it's because they feel like they are losing control over their own choices. Imagine an employee who has been working a certain way for years. One day, leadership announces a new system with no discussion, no transition period, just a firm directive that this is how things will be from now on. Even if the new system is objectively better, the immediate reaction will likely be resistance. Why? Because the employee wasn't part of the process. They didn't get to understand it, test it, or internalize it. They weren't given the chance to make the change their own. Instead, they were pressured into it. And when people feel pressure, they instinctively push back. We see this in all aspects of life. Parents who pressure their children into a certain career path often face rebellion. Managers who enforce rigid rules without explanation create disengagement. Even in friendships, when one person tries too hard to make another see their point of view, the other person is more likely to dig their heels in, even if deep down they might agree. The problem is not the change itself. It's how the change is introduced. Pressure strips people of their autonomy, and when people feel they are losing control, they fight to reclaim it. The paradox is that humans are incredibly adaptable. We thrive on progress and innovation. We are drawn to what improves our lives and work. But that adaptability only works when we feel like we are part of the process. When people are given the time, space, and support to adjust, they are much more likely to embrace change willingly. The most effective leaders understand this. They don't dictate change. They create an environment where people want to change on their own. History has proven this time and time again. The most successful movements, whether in business, technology, or society, were not built on force. They were built on inspiration. People followed because they believed in the change, not because they were pressured into it. When Steve Jobs introduced the iPhone, he didn't demand that people switch from their flip phones. He simply showed them something better, something they wanted. The change happened naturally. The same principle applies in leadership, relationships, and any effort to influence others. When we focus on pressure, we focus on compliance rather than commitment. Compliance is temporary. It lasts only as long as the pressure remains. The moment that force is removed, people revert to what feels comfortable. Commitment, on the other hand, is lasting. When people choose change for themselves, they internalize it, own it, and make it a part of their identity. That's the kind of change that sticks. So the question is not, how do I make people change? The question is, how do I create an environment where change feels natural, where it feels like a choice instead of an obligation? The answer lies in trust, communication, and example. When people feel heard, respected, and involved, they open themselves to new possibilities. They stop seeing change as something being done to them and start seeing it as something they are part of. Inspiration beats persuasion. There is a fundamental difference between inspiration and persuasion. Persuasion relies on arguments, logic, and debate. It tries to convince someone to think or act in a certain way, often by presenting facts, statistics, and reasoning. Inspiration, on the other hand, moves people on a deeper level. It doesn't try to win an argument. It creates a vision so compelling that people naturally gravitate toward it. Persuasion pushes, but inspiration pulls. And the truth is, people are far more likely to follow what pulls them than what pressures them. Think about the last time someone tried to persuade you of something you weren't sure about. Maybe they presented logical points, made a strong case, even had evidence to back up their claims. But if you weren't ready to accept it, no amount of reasoning could change your mind. That's because persuasion often triggers defensiveness. When we feel like someone is trying to convince us, we instinctively resist. Even if their argument makes sense, we don't want to feel like we are being told what to think. Inspiration works differently. It bypasses resistance because it doesn't ask for immediate agreement. It simply shows something that people want to be part of. We see this all the time in leadership. A boss who constantly tries to persuade their team to work harder, be more productive, or follow a new strategy often meets resistance. Employees may comply, but they do so reluctantly. They are doing it because they have to, not because they believe in it. But a leader who inspires their team by demonstrating passion, commitment, and belief in a shared purpose doesn't have to persuade. People follow because they want to, not because they feel pressured to. Inspiration creates an emotional connection that persuasion never can. This is why the most influential figures in history, whether in business, politics, or social change, were not just great speakers or skilled debaters. They were people who inspired through action and vision. Martin Luther King Jr. didn't persuade people to believe in civil rights by listing out logical arguments. He painted a vision of a world that people could believe in, a future they wanted to be part of. Steve Jobs didn't convince people that Apple was the best company. He inspired them by showing what was possible, by creating products that made people excited to be part of the Apple movement. In everyday life, the same principle applies. If you want to see change in your workplace, in your community, or even in your relationships, inspiration will always be more effective than persuasion. You don't convince people to be kinder by lecturing them about kindness. You show them kindness and they naturally respond. You don't persuade people to trust you by explaining why they should. You act in a way that earns their trust. The most powerful influence comes not from what we say, but from what we do. Another key difference is that persuasion is often temporary, while inspiration is lasting. When people are persuaded to do something, their motivation depends on external pressure. The moment that pressure is removed, they are likely to revert to their old ways. But when people are inspired, the change becomes part of them. They don't need reminders or reinforcements because their actions come from an internal drive. They are no longer acting out of obligation, but out of a personal desire to be part of something meaningful. This is why businesses that focus on inspiring their employees have far better results than those that rely on pressure or persuasion. An inspired employee doesn't need constant supervision or motivation. They are self-driven. A persuaded employee, on the other hand, requires continuous effort to keep them on track. The same applies to customers, movements, and any effort to create lasting impact. Inspiration doesn't just create followers, it creates believers. If you want to influence people, focus less on convincing and more on embodying the change you want to see. The strongest movements, the most successful leaders, and the most transformative ideas don't spread because someone argued for them effectively. They spread because they touch something deeper in people, something persuasion alone could never reach. Change happens through action, not words. Words are powerful. They can inspire, educate, and challenge the way we think. But words alone don't create real change. Change only happens when action follows. No matter how persuasive a speech is, how compelling an argument sounds, or how well-written a plan may be, nothing actually shifts until someone takes the first step. Action is what moves ideas from theory to reality. It is what transforms intentions into outcomes. Without it, words are just noise, full of potential, but ultimately empty. We see this all the time in leadership. A manager might talk endlessly about the importance of collaboration, but if they never actually create opportunities for teamwork, their words mean little. A company may claim that they care about employee well-being, but if their policies prioritize profits over people, their statements ring hollow. A leader isn't respected for what they say, they are respected for what they do. It's action that builds trust, credibility, and influence. When people see consistency between words and actions, they believe. When they see a gap, they lose faith. This applies beyond leadership. It's true for personal growth as well. Many people talk about wanting to improve their health, start a new habit, or develop a new skill. They read books, watch videos, and make plans. But until they take action, nothing changes. The hardest part of any transformation isn't knowing what to do, it's actually doing it. This is why so many people get stuck in a cycle of planning without progress. They wait for the perfect moment, the right motivation, or the best strategy, never realizing that the only way forward is to act. Social movements throughout history have also demonstrated this principle. The most significant changes in society weren't driven by discussions alone. Conversations started them, but action made them real. The civil rights movement didn't succeed because people talked about equality. It succeeded because people marched, protested, and risked their lives to fight for justice. Women didn't gain the right to vote because they debated the issue. They took action, organized, and refused to be ignored. Talking about problems may raise awareness, but action is what forces solutions. Action is also what separates true leaders from those who simply wish to lead. Anyone can talk about a vision, but not everyone is willing to take the risks and put in the effort required to make it happen. Many people have great ideas, but only a few act on them. This is why execution matters more than intention. It's why a less talented but action-oriented person will often achieve more than a highly intelligent but passive one. The world doesn't reward potential, it rewards action. One of the biggest obstacles to taking action is fear. People hesitate because they worry about failing, about looking foolish, or about not getting it right the first time. But waiting for certainty is one of the biggest barriers to change. Action creates momentum. The first step may not be perfect, but it leads to the second, then the third, and before long, progress is being made. Every great achievement started with an imperfect first action. It's not about knowing every step before you begin. It's about having the courage to begin at all. Another challenge is that action requires effort, while words are easy. Talking about change doesn't require sacrifice, discipline, or discomfort. But real transformation demands commitment. It means showing up consistently, even when it's hard. It means pushing through resistance, overcoming setbacks, and refusing to quit when things don't go as planned. Those who create real change aren't the ones who talk the most about it. They are the ones who refuse to stop working toward it. No matter the goal, whether it's leading a team, building a movement, or improving oneself, nothing will happen without action. Words can inspire, but only action can create. Change doesn't come from making promises, setting intentions, or having deep conversations. It comes from movement, from decisions made real, from ideas brought to life. Lead by example, not by argument. People are not inspired by words alone. They are inspired by actions. The most effective leaders, teachers, and role models understand that telling people what to do is far less powerful than showing them how it's done. You can argue, debate, and present logical explanations all day long, but at the end of the day, people don't follow instructions, they follow behavior. If you want others to embrace a new mindset, adopt a new habit, or believe in a cause, the most effective way is to embody it yourself. We see this in every area of life. A parent who tells their child to be kind, yet treats others with rudeness, sends a conflicting message. A manager who talks about teamwork but takes credit for successes alone creates distrust. A leader who promotes hard work but cuts corners themselves won't inspire dedication. People don't learn what you tell them. They learn what you show them. Arguments may convince the mind temporarily, but example influences behavior permanently. This is why the most respected leaders are those who live their values. In business, employees are far more motivated by a boss who rolls up their sleeves and works alongside them than by one who simply gives orders. In sports, the captain who puts in extra practice and pushes their limits earns the respect of their teammates more than the one who just delivers motivational speeches. Authority is not granted by title or by words. It is earned through action. History is filled with examples of individuals who led by example rather than by argument. Mahatma Gandhi didn't argue with people about nonviolence. He practiced it, even when faced with brutal opposition. Nelson Mandela didn't just talk about forgiveness. He demonstrated it after years of imprisonment. These leaders didn't persuade people to believe in their cause through debates or intellectual reasoning. They became living proof of their message. And as a result, people followed. The same principle applies in the workplace. A boss who demands punctuality but frequently arrives late sends the wrong message. A team leader who preaches innovation but resists new ideas creates frustration. If you want your employees to be honest, hardworking, and dedicated, the best way is to show them what that looks like in practice. People trust what they see, not what they are told. The strongest cultures in organizations are built not by rules and policies, but by the behaviors modeled at the top. One of the main reasons leading by example is so powerful is that it eliminates resistance. When people feel like they are being forced or pressured into change, their natural instinct is to push back. Arguments often make people defensive, even when the logic is sound. But when they see something working, when they witness the benefits firsthand, they become more open to adopting it themselves. Change feels less like an order and more like an opportunity. Leading by example also builds credibility. Anyone can talk about leadership, commitment, or integrity, but when actions don't match words, trust is lost. A leader who consistently demonstrates the values they preach gains the loyalty of those around them. They don't need to convince people to believe in them. People believe because they've seen proof. Trust is not built through speeches or presentations. It's built through daily actions repeated over time. The truth is, the most influential people don't win arguments. They inspire through behavior. The world doesn't need more people telling others how to act. It needs more people showing the way. Whether in leadership, relationships, or personal growth, the most lasting impact comes from those who live by their principles, not just talk about them. The right people will follow. Not everyone will support you, believe in you, or join you on your journey, and that's okay. One of the biggest mistakes people make when trying to create change, lead a movement, or build something meaningful is assuming that they need to convince everyone. The truth is, not everyone is meant to follow you. Some people will resist, some will doubt, and some simply won't care. But the right people, the ones who truly connect with your vision, values, and purpose, will find their way to you. We often waste energy trying to win over those who are uninterested or unwilling to see what we see. We try to explain ourselves, debate, and justify our choices, thinking that if we just find the right words, we can make them understand. But leadership isn't about convincing everyone. It's about attracting the right ones. The people who align with your mission will be drawn to you, not because you forced them to see your point of view, but because something in your actions, in your beliefs, resonates with them. This is true in every aspect of life. In business, not every customer will love your product, but the right ones will. In leadership, in relationships, not everyone will support your growth, but the right ones will. The strongest movements, companies, and communities are built not by appealing to everyone, but by connecting deeply with the right people. History is filled with examples of leaders who were rejected by the majority before they were embraced by the right ones. When Martin Luther King Jr. spoke about equality, not everyone listened, but the right people did. When Steve Jobs introduced revolutionary technology, not everyone believed in it, but the right people did. The early stages of any significant change are often met with skepticism, but that skepticism doesn't matter. What matters is finding those who believe in what you believe. Trying to convince the wrong people is exhausting and unproductive. It drains energy, creates frustration, and often leads to self-doubt. The reality is, not everyone is ready for what you have to offer, and that's okay. Instead of focusing on those who resist, focus on those who are open. Focus on those who see the vision, who feel inspired, and who want to be part of something bigger. Those are the people who will help move things forward. One of the most freeing realizations in leadership, business, and personal growth is that you don't need everyone to agree with you. You just need the right people to believe. When you stop seeking universal approval, you start attracting genuine supporters. The people who truly align with your message will not need convincing. They will see your actions, your commitment, and your consistency, and they will follow because they believe, not because they were pressured into it. This also means that rejection and resistance are not signs of failure. They are signs of clarity. When someone doesn't support your vision, it doesn't mean you are on the wrong path. It simply means they are not the right fit. The most successful leaders, creators, and innovators understand this. They don't let doubt from the wrong people slow them down. They stay focused on those who see the value in what they are building. The world is full of people looking for something to believe in. Your job isn't to chase after everyone. It's to stand firmly in your purpose and let the right people find you. The ones who share your vision, who resonate with your mission, and who feel inspired by your actions will follow. Not because you beg them to, but because they truly want to be part of the journey. Sustainable change is voluntary. Real change, the kind that lasts, is never forced. It cannot be imposed through rules, pressure, or persuasion alone. Sustainable change happens when people choose it for themselves, when they see the value in it and decide to make it their own. The moment change feels like an obligation, resistance follows. But when it feels like a choice, people embrace it willingly. This is why the most effective transformations, whether in businesses, societies, or personal lives, are always voluntary, not enforced. We see this in organizations all the time. A company may introduce a new policy, a new strategy, or a new way of doing things, but if employees don't believe in it, the change won't stick. They may comply for a while because they have to, but the moment leadership stops enforcing it, they revert to old habits. However, when people understand the value of the change and feel a sense of ownership over it, they internalize it. They no longer need to be told to do it. They do it because they want to. That's the difference between temporary compliance and lasting commitment. This applies to personal growth as well. People don't change just because someone tells them to. They change when they are ready, when they have their own reasons, and when they feel empowered to take action. You can give someone all the advice in the world, but if they don't see the need for change, nothing will happen. This is why pushing people too hard often backfires. Instead of inspiring them, it makes them defensive. But when they come to the realization on their own, the change becomes real. Social change follows the same principle. Movements that are built on inspiration rather than force have the strongest impact. When people voluntarily stand behind a cause, when they choose to be part of something bigger than themselves, their commitment is unshakable. History has proven that forced compliance does not create real change. It only creates temporary obedience. Societal shifts that truly last happen because enough people willingly adopt a new way of thinking, a new set of values, and a new way of living. One of the biggest mistakes leaders make is trying to control change instead of guiding it. They assume that if they push hard enough, people will follow. But control only works in the short term. The moment external pressure is removed, everything falls apart. Great leaders don't demand change. They create an environment where people want to change. They inspire by example, provide the right tools and support, and most importantly, they give people the freedom to make the choice themselves. This is why fear-driven change never lasts. When people change out of fear, whether it's fear of punishment, failure, or rejection, the change is shallow. It is based on avoidance rather than true belief. But when people change because they see the potential, because they are excited about the possibilities, and because they believe in the outcome, the transformation is deep and lasting. Fear fades, but belief endures. Voluntary change also brings a sense of ownership. When people feel like they are part of the process, they are more invested in making it work. They don't just follow the rules. They innovate, adapt, and find ways to make the change even better. This is why top-performing teams and organizations focus on involvement rather than enforcement. They don't impose change from the top down, they cultivate it from within. Sustainable change is never about forcing people to comply. It's about helping them see why the change matters and giving them the space to embrace it in their own way. The most powerful transformations don't happen because they were mandated. They happen because people believed in them, owned them, and chose to make them a reality.